Your Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Matt Tucker, store director here at VG's in North Fenton. Just want to recognize Honor and Remember for honoring my friend's son who passed away in Afghanistan a few years ago, and it meant a lot to him personally to get that flag and for us to honor and remember him for the rest of his life.
I'm David Dunzo, former member of the United States Navy. I've seen the impact of the Honor and Remember program by simply presenting a flag to multiple friends who were lost in combat. Families were impacted who know that their loved ones are not forgotten. Our friends are not forgotten. Our comrades are not forgotten. Please step up and help us. It is needed, and we need to remember those we lost.
Okay, my name is Richard Schmidt. I'm a veteran of the United States Navy, and this flag means so much to veterans. It's hard to put into words what it means. Veterans seem to have been forgotten in the past, especially our Vietnam veterans. They've been forgotten. And when this flag is presented to a family, it means so much to them. It's amazing the honor that they get receiving one of these flags. Please support this organization. It means a lot to all our veterans.
Welcome back to More War Monday, folks. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, Americans must remember the cost of war and our responsibilities to those we have lost and their families. Every living American has a great responsibility. That responsibility is not hard to fulfill, nor is it all that complex. A simple act of saying thank you to Gold Star families who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms meets the requirement. In our country, in our past, there have been periods of time when we failed to meet this responsibility, but today we have come together to ensure that that never happens again. And a new symbol, a flag, has been created for all to see when it flies. It symbolizes the sacrifice, honor, and remembrance that we owe to them. And my guest today lost his son, a soldier, in the global war on terror. He created the new flag and is the author of Tragedy to Tribute. One father's grief fuels a passionate journey to change the mindset of a nation. On December 29th, 2005, George Anthony Lutz II, Tony, was killed by a sniper's bullet while on patrol in Fallujah, Iraq. That devastating news shattered his family, shattered them, and his friends, plunging them into shock, grief, and an unimaginable loss, a pain that has been shared by countless other families across this nation and across our history. Well, George Lutz is the founder of Honor and Remember Incorporated, a national nonprofit dedicated to permanent public recognition of every U.S. service member who died in the line of duty. He's a Gold Star father, obviously, and a passionate advocate. Lutz has traveled to all 50 states, all 50, bringing honor, healing, and unity to thousands of military families across generations. George, welcome to the Rob Maness Show. I'm honored to have you here.
Well, Colonel, I don't know what to say, as an intro to that, but I'm humbled, and I'm honestly really looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and you probably heard the theme of the show on Mondays is More War Monday. But when I learned about your book and the effort that you've gone through and the flag and everything, I decided that for once I want to do a show today that talks about the people that have served, the families' sacrifices, how families deal with the issue, and by the way, how we want to remember them, but also move forward into the future and teach our children.
Sir, your mic is closed.
What is going on? So I'm happy to have you here. Can you tell us about Tony? A little bit of why he joined the service and a little bit about his life.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you a little bit of a background here. Tony was one of 5 children. He was my first son, and he was just a fun-loving, gregarious kid who just loved people. He loved interaction. He had a sales mentality, a marketing mentality, and very, very athletic. He did a lot of running. He played baseball. He was very competitive. And what happened was in 2001, 9/11 happened. He was just finishing up high school, and he was very affected by that tragedy in New York and Pennsylvania and Washington. And he decided to enlist in 2003. He decided to enlist. At that time he was married and had a child coming, actually, and decided to serve his country. He felt like his skills would make a difference, in this war on terror, which had actually started, I think, we believe, with the USS Cole in 2000, the year before. And he found a job function. He searched all of the armed forces, and he found a job function, Colonel, psychological operations. I'm sure you're familiar with that. It was the only job. It was the only job he wanted in any of the branches of service. He tested into it, which is pretty difficult in and of itself. It's a very small percentage. And then that's what he decided to do. He was going to go out and make a difference. And he was on his first deployment when he was killed. But by then he had 2 children. So he had a wife and a son and a daughter. And he left them all behind to make a difference over for the women and children in Iraq.
Yeah, and that's something that Americans have done for over 250 years, is just deciding to volunteer to make a difference, especially in times of crisis. I'm not surprised that he chose psychological operation. That's a tough field. You don't normally enlist into that. You go do something else first. And then you do that. I was in a similar, not a similar field to psych, but in EOD, in bomb disposal, that was one of the first to be allowed to enlist into it. And when the other services were requiring you to be an E5 or above. And so that says something about him right there. Do you know how he came to be in Fallujah on that day?
Well, the PSYOPs teams are all 3-man teams, and those teams are all assigned to Marine battalions usually, right? To the colonels that are overseeing those battalions. And that was his deploy. He was deployed to Fallujah, but what he was doing that day was basically they had done a patrol. They were coming off of their patrol, and this isn't my world, so I'm sure I'm not going to get it right, but one of the things that they were very conscious of were when the enemy was putting graffiti on walls. They were very conscious of the graffiti that was written on the walls, because they wanted to make sure that what the message was. and whether something was being said, about strategy or about their movements or anything like that. So they had actually stopped to look at the graffiti on a wall on the wall on the way back to base camp, and maybe even take it down. My son was put up into the Humvee with a 50 cal to oversee the guys that were on the ground, and he was simply shot by a sniper. I say one lucky bullet in the wrong place at the right time, or the right place at the wrong time. But he was the only casualty that day at that moment.
Wow. That, that's Fallujah is one of the toughest battles that we went through. I had air liaison officers from my flying squadron that I sent to do that job with ground forces that were there, and have talked to them many times about it. So you guys got notified not too long after that. Talk folks through, before we get to this first break, how that process went for you.
Well, Tony was married and his wife was on vacation. So, of course, the Army didn't know where he was. And she happened to be in Texas visiting relatives. And so we were notified that next morning on December 30th. I had been out. It was early in the morning. I had, been doing a morning walk. I came up through the backyard. I saw this nondescript white van in my driveway, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. It's first thing in the morning. And I went through the back door, through the house, and my mom had opened the door, was standing there with the door open. And there were two uniformed, officers there at the door. And she goes, well, what should I do? Should I let him in? I said, well, Mom, absolutely, let him in. I didn't ask them to say anything. I ushered them into the living room. I called for my wife, who was upstairs getting ready for work, and said, come down here immediately. Something's happened. And so they came in and, stood in the middle of our entryway and basically delivered those 5 very simple words that no parent ever wants to hear. And we regret to inform you. And we thought this, as they all, I'm sure, thought, well, they must be at the wrong house, right? This isn't the right place. There's got to be somebody up the road that they should be talking to, and not us. And or maybe he was hurt. Maybe we needed to get someplace where he was. It was a devastating moment. It changed the course of all of our lives. Yeah,
as those moments tend to do, sir. It is unimaginable grief because all of these young people are young. Even those of us that are considered old in uniform, are still young. I look back. I look at the people that were my rank and age now, and they seem so much younger than I felt like I looked when I left the Air Force 12 years ago. So yeah, I totally understand. I've unfortunately had the opportunity to deliver those words once in my life. So the grief is insurmountable almost. And I want to give you a chance to talk about how you personally handled that grief. And I think that's why I wanted to do this show and spend an hour with you to talk about the book and the flag and all of the the things that you do and people do with you now across this country, because this has been going on for quite some time with you, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. I was in the Pentagon on 9/11 as a major, and later went and commanded in the global war on terror. So I just deeply, deeply appreciate what you're doing, and deeply appreciate Tony and his service and his family and everything. And we got to take a commercial break. When we'll come right back. We'll show. I've selected three more little clips that we'll show as cold opens to each segment here from Mr. Lutz's work. And we'll be right back.
As is the Memorial Day tradition, NASCAR is pulling the cars to pit road. Special Memorial Day weekend remembrance. For 2.5 centuries, our American military have won, protected, and preserved the many freedoms we enjoy, yet so often take for granted. Memorial Day, our most solemn holiday, when America's military might stands ready, yet thankfully, their guns are silent. And so too in Charlotte, our engines are silent, so we may remember, reflect, and honor those who sacrificed all for our freedoms with this moment of silence. Thank you. Please remember to fly our flag proudly tomorrow. We'll be back to continue with the Coca-Cola 600 on Fox.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube in our X Spaces simulcast today. My guest is George Lutz. He's the dad of Corporal Tony Lutz, who gave his life for us in Fallujah, Iraq, in the global war on terror back in 2005. And George has turned his grief into action. He's the founder of the group Honor and Remember. And if you watch, we're able to see that little NASCAR piece there from the Charlotte Motor Speedway in North Carolina. You see the flag that George's organization has developed and created and is getting approved by state legislatures around the country to honor and remember the fallen and their families. It's a beautiful flag. I would love to get a copy of one so that I can take it around and talk to people about it and tell them about this organization. And George, you talk about this in your book. What inspired you to turn your grief into action that has resulted in this?
I'm glad we have an hour, Colonel.
That's why we have an hour.
Thank you for showing that clip. Actually, that clip was from 2024. We have another clip from 2025, which is even more powerful. The flag is four times bigger than that flag that was there in 2024. So it's, but the story of how I turned is partly spiritual, because I am a man of faith. I don't apologize for that, because I believe that, and this is very emotional for me, as you know, but I believe that God allowed, my son to be taken for a much bigger purpose, and that purpose is what we're talking about now. But what happened to me right after that was I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what answers there were to grieving. I'd never been in this place before. You don't want to bury your kids. No parent would ever. You can't plan for it. You can't prepare for it. You can't think about it. Even when he was overseas, it wasn't a conversation that we had at home. Tony had said to us, if you ever hear that there's casualties on the news, and it won't be me, because they'll tell you first. So he said, don't even look at the media. And so when that news comes, right, when that knock comes, and you're placed with the reality of it, what do? Well, what I started to do is what I found most people weren't doing. I started going to other funerals. I started reaching out to other families. I live in a military town whose loved ones were dying. And I was there at the funeral, and they didn't know me, but I would make sure that at some point during the service, I introduced myself. I let them know that I'd lost my son. And if they needed to talk it through, I just wanted to let them know I was available. And I did that for about 2 years. I went to dozens of funerals. And then I started meeting families that had lost their loved ones before Tony. And all the way back, generations. I was meeting, Vietnam mothers and Korean children, and every generation of family I started to talk to, because I wanted to try to salve my grief as well, right? I wanted to hear stories, and I wanted to know that his life wasn't wasted. And so what were they thinking? And alongside of that, as a Gold Star family, in this situation, families start getting gifts. They start, people don't know what to do, and everybody wants to do something. So we got all kinds of gifts, quilts and photographs and little trinkets of coins, and just many, many things of people that were trying to reach out and let us know that they were thinking about us. And that was nice. But I'm more of an introvert than I am an extrovert. And getting things was very difficult for me. I didn't really want things, although I appreciated the thought. And after meeting then, I can't tell you how many families I met, maybe 100 families. I realized that 2 things was important to these families, more than anything they could ever receive. 2 things were important to them. One, that they knew that their loved one didn't die in vain, right? That it wasn't some kind of wasted death. And the second is that they not be forgotten. And this was the biggest cry of their heart. There's a lot of organizations out there, and they're doing wonderful things, and they need to keep on doing those wonderful things.
Yeah.
But the one thing that these families want is really more emotional, right, than physical. What they want is to know that their loved one has not been forgotten. And so I decided I wanted to give a gift, and I didn't know what that was going to be. As I was going to these funerals and seeing these flag lines, the Patriot Guard riders, the American Legion riders, the combat veterans of America, all these groups that were motorcyclists, they would put these flag lines together. And they were initially put together to counter, right, the protests that were happening really about that time when my son died, the whatever that group was called. And these flag lines were wonderful, mostly all American flags, you know, down the sidewalks. But then every once in a while, there'll be a branch of service flag, obviously. And then there would be a POW MIA flag.
Yeah.
And I wasn't military and I didn't have a context. And I kept seeing the POW MIA flag and I was thinking, I don't think they were POW, you know, and I don't think they were missing. So I was trying to figure it out and just in my own head. And then after a number of funerals and thinking about this gift, I thought, well, that's it. The gift is a flag. The gift is national recognition with a symbol that everybody's going to see. Everybody's going to carry it. They're going to put it up on a flagpole. And then families are going to see it. And when they see it, they're going to know without a doubt that whoever is flying it is sending a direct message to them that they haven't forgotten. And so that became the whole mission. It was, oh my gosh, I'm going to create this symbol just like the POW MIA, you know, just like those that were captured or missing. I was going to honor those that, you know, came home a different way, that actually came home, but a different way. And so that's what I set about to do. You know, we can talk about that journey and what that took, but that was the premise of how we got to creating the Honor and Remember flag and the importance of what it means to so many.
Yeah. You know what's amazing, George, is that as I was researching for the program today, when I saw the flag, the immediate thought that pictured in my mind was, oh, the POW MIA flag replacement. And I know that's not your intent, but that's what popped into my head. And I go, oh, this is a way to symbolize that sacrifice, just like we did the POW MIA flag. And I thought of that before I read anything from you about that. So it's very interesting how that came to mind for you.
Yeah. So take that thought out of your head. There's no replacement.
Right.
We're not trying to replace the American flag the POW MIA flag.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we have been honoring many MIA families. And so we want to make sure that those that are out there actively trying to find those remains for those families and bring them some closure, realize that that is a very important mission that they're on. But what I think that we're doing is that we are what I like to say is completing a circle of tribute. All right. That's what I think. That's the way I would like to put it, because the POW MIA is for those that are still unaccounted for. And we need to fight that fight, and I'll fight it with them. But then there's those thousands, tens of thousands that didn't get to come home. And they need to be recognized in their own way. And the Honor and Remember flag recognizes that group. But not just, see, here's the difference of the Honor and Remember flag. It really doesn't even recognize the group so much as it recognizes the families. Because my son is gone. He doesn't know what I'm doing for him. He doesn't know what I'm doing for the thousands of others. But the generations that are still here, that loved on him, that loved on these other men and women, they're here grieving. They're going to be grieving the rest of their lives. My goal was to send a message to them, and for America to send a message to them specifically. And I don't think any other flag in America accomplishes that mission that I'm on.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the families. That's the other thing that I found very interesting about your effort. So did you create the nonprofit group as a result of thinking about this flag project, or did that come beforehand as a way to structuralize your reaching out to other families?
Well, I wanted to formalize something very respectfully. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be misconstrued. I wanted to make sure that it was going to be completely transparent, that nobody could look at me and say that somehow I was benefiting or profiting or anything from this. And so I, right out of the gate, solicited, my smarter friends, right, and my legal friends and my professional friends, and said, "This is what I want to achieve. Will you help me to achieve it?" And so, starting a nonprofit organization absolutely made the most sense. One of the things that happened when the POW-MIA flag was created was that they failed to protect it, through any kind of legal means, like there's no trademark or copyright. And so by not protecting it, they left it open for cannibalization, right? And for color changes, and for even it to be made in other countries like China and Vietnam. And so I knew that I was going to be very methodical. I was going to be very sensible and strategic. And so that's why I created everything around it. I gave up all rights to it, to the organization, so that there could be no really negativity, that could come against, me, for this. And then started to, then had to develop the flag. What's it going to look like? So I had to work on the development of the flag and the symbolism. I wanted it to be very iconic. I really wanted it to be able to be understood, as you said, when you looked at it, maybe what it meant automatically, right? You've got a folded flag, you've got eternal flames, you've got a blue star, a gold star, and the word. So that flag takes on a context that makes sense when you see it.
Yeah.
And so this was all part of the process.
Well, we got to take another break. When we come back, I've got a question in our live audience, so we'll take that. Continue our conversation with George Lutz, founder of Honor and Remember, and author of a new book that tells his story, and the creator of the Honor and Remember flag. And it's a beautiful flag, folks. You can see it in the little video clips that we're showing today, and you can find his organization at honorandremember.org. We'll be right back with George Lutz.
All right, everybody.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and my guest today is the founder of the organization Honor and Remember that created that video there. They have some great media on their website and on their X account, and it's fantastic. Freedom, responsibility, boldness in our expression of our faith, all messages. George Lutz is the founder and my guest today, and author of the new book about his journey of grief and action, really, at the loss of his son, Corporal Tony Lutz II. And Tragedy to Tribute is the name of the book. George, the videos that your team has put together are fantastic. I have to give you my compliments on that. I've been doing this media thing and politics and others and messaging for a while now. And I couldn't help but show those. And we've got one more in the next segment. But thank you very much for doing them. I mean, the message is not just powerful, but real and accurate. And just like the flag, when I first saw it, I'm like, my goodness, I wonder why we haven't done that before. You know? Well, I got a question from our live audience. Let's go ahead and take that. Our host over there is Shell. Go ahead, Shell. That question.
Yes, sir. We have Thomas, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. Mr. Lutz, my name is Thomas Murphy. Sir, I served as a medic. I served as a medic over in Fallujah, Iraq, with Marine Corps. And we also ran the collection and clearing company that did all the processing for all the wounded and all the KIAs from Iraq, sir. From Fallujah. Sir, your son, we honor him every day. Thank you for his service. I don't get to talk to the opposite side of the story very much, sir. Your son was a hero. We honor him every day, and thank you. Thank you very much for his service, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Means a lot.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah. And thank you for your service, Thomas, and your sacrifice. You know,
I'm sure you saw a lot, Thomas. No man should ever bear that.
We don't bear it alone, sir. Every day we can talk to our fellow service members, our fellow veterans who have gone through this. It makes it easier. It never makes it 100% acceptable. But sir, your son, I guarantee you, he did not die alone. He did not die in vain. We honored every single service member, every single one, from the minute that they came into our facility to the minute that they flew off in the helicopter, sir. Your son was honored, he was respected, and he is revered. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And George, Thomas touched on something that you've talked about already in the show, and that is talking to others that share the same experience. You know, one of the things we started doing in the military is flying the service members that have died from Dover to a local military airfield and had the honor guard make sure we're there, so they're not being shuffled around as cargo. And I did that a few times in my command tours and got the opportunity to spend time with the families quite a few times, as a matter of fact. And just me being able to talk to them actually helped me deal with the things that I remember.
Right. So remember, I started out earlier on, and I talked about going to the funerals and meeting the families. And soon after that, I started to take those families and bring them together for meals. And I would gather the dads, especially, once a month, and we'd go to a restaurant and we'd all sit around, a dozen or so dads, and we'd share about our kids. And so that was the beginnings of my outreach, in a sense. When I created the flag in 2008 and unveiled it publicly on Memorial Day, in 2010, I decided that I was going to deploy myself to the United States. And then I was going to bring this message to every single state capital, and every Gold Star family member and veteran I could find. And so for 6 months, I literally went to every state capital. I drove 40,000 miles over that time, and I probably met more Gold Star families than anybody on earth. I don't know if anybody's talked to as many families as I have, because that was my purpose. It was to go out and sit in a community meeting or sit in a living room. Many houses I stayed with families all across the country. They put me up for the night. And so I was able to share and cry and hug and just share our experiences, right? As to what we were going through, as a family, what they were going through. And it just steeled my reserve. And it wasn't just for war on terror families, as I mentioned. I was talking to families from generations back, to kids who are now in their 80s who lost their dad in World War I or World War II that had never met them, to Vietnam families who'd never met their dads. It was an amazing experience for me, a humbling experience for me. And the importance really comes down to this, Colonel. When Tony came to me that day and he said, "Hey, Dad, I joined the Army," he didn't ask my permission. He was his own man. He had already had a family, and he was 23 years old. And the first thing I said to him was, "Tony, you're crazy. There's a war going on." I said, "You can get hurt." I mean, that was my first thought. This was right after 9/11. We were going into Iraq at that time. And he said, "Dad," he goes, "I've got a skill set. I think the women and children of Iraq need our help, and I think I can make a difference." So I gave him a hug. I told him I loved him. I told him to keep his head down. And you see what happened, right? But yeah. I will tell you as bluntly, and I don't usually have to rephrase things because I've said things as well as I can say them so many times. But every parent in America would rather somebody else's kid died for their country besides their own. And I raised my hand on that one myself. I would rather my son be home. Every parent in America. But I will tell you, somebody else's kid has to die so that yours doesn't have to. And what's the least that we can do as Americans, as typical Americans? The very least we can do is be grateful.
Yep.
And until the Honor and Remember flag was unveiled, I could find no public unified way that we all could send one specific message to a Gold Star family that we may never know. And that became the symbol of the Honor and Remember flag. It's the only way in America that we can all come together and say the same message all over our communities. That's why it's important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So is your vision, before we go to this last break, is your vision to have this flag flown by as many households as possible on Memorial Day? Or every day?
Yeah, my vision, Colonel, is to see this flag on every flagpole in America. Because why? These men and women have died for every citizen in America. And I want this flag on every flagpole in America. It has to be. If you tell me you care about freedom, if you tell me that you care about sacrifice, but you don't want to send a message to the very families who gave their loved ones, then I don't really think you are thinking about it all that much. So this has been legislated in 29 states already as the official state symbol of remembrance, 29 states. We have a bill in Congress to federally adopt the Honor and Remember flag, 1363. And so this is my goal, is that we see it. And you ask about it being flown on Memorial Day. I don't know if we're up against a hard break. Just cut me off if we are. But Memorial Day is an interesting day for a Gold Star family.
Let's
Many
take that
families.
up right after this break.
All right.
All right, we'll be right back with George Lutz. Honor and remember. Write those words down. Watch this show and share it. Right back.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Honor. As a verb, it means to observe with respect, to hold in high esteem, to admire. As a noun, it's about recognition, a distinction, a merit that deserves acknowledgement. Boiling it down, honor is all about respect, and our hunger for respect starts young. Accolades, achievements, promotions, trophies, titles, bonuses, blue ribbons. We scratch and scrape for them. Our honors, our accolades. However, there is one award, the most costly to ever exist. Yet no man or woman desires to achieve it. The Purple Heart. While many of the recipients are the wounded warriors living among us, today we honor the servicemen and women who received the Purple Heart for giving up their lives while defending our country. This award reflects the highest form of sacrifice, one's self. These service members sacrificed so that we can live free. Our country, our families, each one of us, we are all honored by their sacrifice. And today, we honor them by remembering them.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. My guest today is the founder of that organization, Honor and Remember, whose flag is now flying and being protected in many, many states, and has a bill. I think he said the bill number was 1363 in Congress to recognize it and codify it and put it in place as a permanent fixture here on every American flagpole to honor and remember those who've given the ultimate sacrifice for us, but most importantly, honor and remember their families and let their families know that we are grateful. And my guest is George Lutz. George, another great video. I just had to show that during this show because I want people to see it and share it and listen to it. It was fantastic. You were talking about Memorial Day before the break.
Right. You had asked me whether or not, my intention was to have this flag flying on Memorial Day. And so, Memorial Day is an interesting day And I did some research on it over the years as I've been working on this mission. And I've come to realize that between 50 and 80% of Americans, depending on where they are, don't know why Memorial Day exists. So we're already up against this huge population that really doesn't get it. And what I was starting to say was that the families, the Gold Star families, many of them are waiting for Memorial Day to be over. You know, it's one of those for a lot of reasons. I mean, one is that because there's so little attention paid to it in many places, it's painful. But the other thing is to recognize that Memorial Day isn't the day their loved one died. That's not the day they remember. You know, that's the day that we're trying to get the country to remember. And if you think about it, throughout the years, there has been a casualty in our country every single calendar day. So today is Memorial Day for some family. Whatever day one of your listeners might be listening to this broadcast is going to be Memorial Day for another family. And so every single day is a day that some member of the family is remembering. And it may not be the day they died. It could be their birthday. Mm-hmm. Birthdays are even more important to Gold Star families than the death anniversary is. You will see them much more recognize birthdays. And then there's, you know, the day they graduated from whatever, grade school, high school, college.
Yeah.
You know, there are days all around the calendar that are being recognized as a painful day, right? So why fly something once on a day that most don't recognize anyway? And that you will probably not get flown on all flagpoles either. So let's make it something that we're sending a message continuously, right? 24/7 every day, because you never know what family member is going to come by your flagpole at any given time. So that's why it's important that this flag is seen continuously, everywhere.
Absolutely. You know, it's very similar to the same way people feel about the POW MIA flag. You know, they want to fly it all the time because of that very thing. You never know whose family is going to see that. And it recognizes that we know what they're going to recognize their sacrifice and those kind of things. Well, I've got one more question from the live audience. Let's see if we can go ahead and take that. Get to the show. Go ahead, Sean.
We have D. Boudreaux, sir.
Danny?
Hi, how are y'all today?
Hey, Danny.
First of all, George, let me say this, George. I, as a father, can only imagine the pain that you and Gold Star families feel, or anybody really that has to bury a child, because that goes against the natural order of things. We expect our children to bury us, not the other way around. Yes. At the same time, I cannot imagine the pride that you feel knowing that he served in our armed forces and served our country. So the last thing I want to tell you before I leave, I've got to run, but the one thing I want you to remember is that his life mattered. His life mattered. It mattered not only to you and to his family and his friends, it mattered to everybody whose life he touched. And, you know, sometimes, and that's the way it is for all of us, sometimes our words or our deeds make a huge difference in someone's life, and we just don't know it. If we're lucky, sometimes we find out, but we may never know until we stand in the presence of the Father. And so keep that in mind, that your son is in the presence of the Father.
Thank you, Boudreaux.
Can I, Danny, if you're just still listening, let me just say this, since you opened up the faith window a little bit. My wrestling with God went about 2 weeks, after his death. And I was lamenting and crying and angry with God, and I was just in a lot of pain. And I felt as vividly as you've just spoken to me today, God speaking to me. And he said, I know you're hurting. He said, because I lost my son too. He said, but I will tell you that your son and my son are together with me in paradise. And Danny, that's all I needed to start thinking about the hurting of others. And I knew that I had that assurance. The last thing my son said to me from the combat zone was, Dad, God is literally my shield. So I've been able to put a lot of investment in that faith and realize that I can move on. Although it still hurts, I can move on and I can help others heal in ways that they may even not have imagined they needed. So
yeah,
thank
George,
you.
And I would just add that, I mean, you are exemplifying what Christ would do himself by helping others in spite of your own trouble, your own grief, because of your faith. And I deeply appreciate it. I got one more question. I think I can take it. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, sir. We have a question from the audience. Kay Daly asks, is there a notable difference of the treatment of Gold Star families between the Biden and the Trump administration?
Yeah, that's a political question that's really hard to answer because I try not to get into politics. These men and women, they serve selflessly because they want to protect their families and their communities, right, and their state. And it goes way beyond the administration of Capitol Hill. And so we just have to know that we're here for the families. There's R's and D's on both sides of the Gold Star community. So you're never going to get any kind of consensus. I will just say that we embrace every family whose loved one died while serving or as a result of serving, including bringing that war home. And we're going to love on them and hug them, and we're going to send this message and run it up a flagpole in a very real sense, so that they know that we're there, right? And
absolutely right. There's no room for partisan ideology in this business. That's for sure.
No, there's not. No, there's not after the fact, especially. You'll never get the answers you want, no matter how many questions you ask. You'll never get the answers you want. So just let us honor you and your family's sacrifice, and let's make this a reality in this country.
Absolutely. But speaking of Capitol Hill, though, you mentioned the bill. What's its current status, and how can folks help you get that through?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I would say that if you're in a state that does not have a state adoption, that you should consider trying to get the legislation for your state to adopt it. And on our website, you can find the 29 states. But as far as legislation on Capitol Hill, it's 1363. It's in the House Judiciary Committee. We have I'm not sure, over a half a dozen co-sponsors right now. And we need more sponsors. So it's not necessarily that sponsors are going to get it done, but if you have a connection with an influential representative, up on the House, write a letter, make a phone call, ask them, why this isn't done already. Why are we holding this up? We Absolutely. Do all kinds of these executive orders and all kinds of these crazy bills we're passing. How about recognizing that as we come to our anniversary of our country's birth, that 250 years of freedom do not come without 250 years of sacrifice. And we need to celebrate that sacrifice.
And that's very well said. And we're going to have to leave it there, George. George Lutz, folks, the founder of Honor and Remember. Remember the flag. Come back, share this episode with your legislator on X and give them a call, write them a letter, send them an email. George Lutz, thank you very much, sir. God bless you. You're certainly in our prayers, and we'll do everything we can to help you continue this effort to take care of these Gold Star families. Tomorrow's Training Tuesday here at Worldview Tube on the Rob Maness Show. I'll see you then.